On the Rise, the first Q&A event for emerging filmmakers in the screen industry. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of this land and paying respect to their elders past and present. And additionally, thank you to Reading Cinemas for hosting us today. In case of any sort of emergency, we have an exit just right here. You may have noticed, unlike our seats, your seats have some fancy buttons and a reclining feature, so I would get comfy because we're about to begin. And just quickly, before we begin, we've had a slight change this evening. Tina, who was supposed to be on our panel, had to get a COVID test this morning because she wasn't feeling so good, and we didn't receive the results back in time, so she will just be supporting this event from afar. But that's okay, we've improvised and we're ready to go. I would like to say though, thank you for coming, thank you for being here, it really means a lot to me. I think we'll be talking about things that are going to benefit you, especially if you're pursuing a career in the film industry. Maybe you're a student, maybe you've graduated as I have, maybe you didn't go to film school, or you're purely just interested in the Australian boom that's happening at the moment. Thanks for coming. Alrighty, so this event was specifically designed to target particular themes and ask questions that will invoke a passing on of knowledge and information that will be very beneficial. So let's begin. As we can see from the video that just played, our panel tonight is really special. They have worked in multiple sections of the industry and thrived. Every panelist's story is completely unique to them. I think we all know that there is no one path into this industry. So a little bit more about our panelists so you know exactly who you're speaking to. First up, over here, we have Clare Sladden. Clare is part of a new breed of emerging showrunners in Australia. Clare wrote, directed and produced her 3 short films, which screened at Academy-accredited festivals. She then wrote, directed and produced her award-winning web series, Freudian Slip, which was nominated for an Orky and has over 350,000 views on YouTube. She then, once again, wrote, directed and produced Winding Road, an original audible narrative podcast that stars Zia Stone and Dagny Montgomery. Sorry, Montgomery. We started Stranger Things, which is pretty cool. Which she's now developing into a television series. Clare also wrote on the Stan original series Eden of Every Crowd Productions, on Fremantle's Wentworth audio spin-off series, and she's received funding from Stan and Screen Queensland to develop the lead her half-hour comedy drama series. And most recently, Clare was selected by the prestigious SBA Wants to Watch program. She was also chosen to lead a room of her project Pathological as the successful participant of Screen Queensland Brad Winter's Lab, a program specifically designed to facilitate emerging showrunners. So thank you for coming. Next to her we have Liz. So Liz was also selected by SBA as one of the 2020 Wants to Watch. Liz is a producer and a production accountant born and raised in regional Australia, who recently returned from living in Canada for the last 8 years, where she worked for companies such as Seeds Accounting, Takeout Productions, which was the film arm of the first Inuit-owned independent publishing company, and E1. In Toronto, her introduction to the industry was through the prestigious Canadian Film Centre, where she production managed several of their short-form dramas. From there, she went on to establish her own marketing company, Middle Age Media, regularly attending such international film markets as Cannes, Sundance, and TIFF. In 2018, she produced The Director, which enjoyed a successful international festival run, qualifying for the BAFTAs and screening at a number of high-profile European festivals, including the Cambridge Film Festival, Encounters Film Festivals, and British Shorts Film Festivals. She also serves as the creative liaison for the Canadian-Australian Chamber of Commerce, and she's currently working as the CFO of Queensland Regional Film Services and CEO of Running Mantis Entertainment. Oh, thank you. Well done. And finally, Jessica Butland. So Jessica is the owner and founder of Radioactive Pictures. Jessica is a producer of feature film, handling development, financing and production through to worldwide distribution through her partners. In addition to producing films through her company, Jessica is a highly experienced line producer, working with other producers to bring their stories to screen. Radioactive Pictures is an independent Australian film production and distribution company based in Brisbane, Australia. Radioactive specialises in releasing quality, independent content suitable for theatrical release in Australia and New Zealand. So thank you as well. some very busy ladies. So I'm really excited, and let's just get started and get into it. What I want to start with from our panel is I'd like you to have a rewind and think about the beginning of your career in filmmaking, a lot like those who are in the audience today. So what did that look like? I'm aware you all went and studied and hold a bachelor's degree of some description. Mm-hmm. However, most of you studied in areas that were not directly film. Claire, I know that you're a successful director, producer, and screenwriter, yet your bachelor's degree is purely in creative writing. Mm-hmm. Was being a screenwriter always in the cards, or did you discover that later on?
Definitely not always on the cards. I think I did 2 screenwriting subjects at uni with creative writing, and I always thought I'd be a novelist. It was because my sister was studying film and TV at the same time, and we ended up writing some scripts together, and I ended up kind of realizing I wasn't, maybe terrible at it. But during that study, that creative writing study, I remember a teacher, I won't name him, we had to write a short film for the, introduction to screenwriting, and he read a passage out of mine anonymously as an example of what not to do. So it certainly wasn't, I didn't think right then that I'd end up being a screenwriter.
That's really interesting. And Liz, you studied communication, public relations, and screen production. Those are all really important skills for a producer. Was that something you premeditated, or something that you kind of incorporated later on?
Not really. I was basically just kind of incorporating. I actually originally did journalism, and then I actually hated it. I had a really bad, a class where I was just like, journalism is not for me. What can I change to at this point? And so I changed to PR. So that was part of my the other half. But I mean, yeah, that turned out to be a really great skill for producing as well, because I ended up going on and using that on my films, and negotiating with, dealing with journalists, negotiating with companies for for contra deals to be able to get lots of, things for set, like Red Bull. You need a good contacts with Red Bull if you're going to make
Very true.
Yeah.
And Jessica, I'm really curious about your start in particular, because I know you have a Bachelor of Engineering and Computer Science and a Diploma in Events Management, which is not a combination I've seen before. But you're here today as a producer, distributor, and company director of Radioactive Pictures. What happened?
Well, you see, I didn't actually graduate because I decided there was a 6-month placement that you had to do in an engineering company to graduate, and I just done 5.5 years of a double degree. It wasn't computer science, it was just science. It was actually the study of rocks, geology. Very similar thing, chemical engineering and geology. I don't know why I did it. I was crazy. I had a family of lawyers and thought I had to impress them. So what happened is I got in a car one day. I met a guy named Michael Budd online. I got in the car, went to Sydney, packed my Hyundai up, drove down and filmed my first film, Life of the Party.
Oh my God.
I mean, there was some work before that in actually getting the film ready to be filmed, but I left before I got to do my placement in engineering, and now I think it's close to forfeiting all of my education.
So it's safe to say that none of you basically started out thinking that you would end up in film. None of you. Which is interesting. So with the next question I have, and this is for everybody, I think something really relatable to those in the industry, specifically those starting out, is the tightrope walk that you have to do between balancing your day job, I suppose, the thing that allows you to pay rent, buy your groceries, versus the time and work and effort you put into pursuing your dream. How do you balance that? How do you specifically balance that, or used to?
I can start. I actually still do. It's interesting. I mean, with distribution, with production now, it's at a tipping point where it is a far more than a full-time job. But you still have the things that you did that brought you to this point. how did I used to manage it? It was just a bit crazy. I had, I worked for my family, I had full-time jobs, I ran businesses, and I had to leave to go and film for, 2 months or be doing a film at the same time. I got to the point where I answered my phone, and I had 2 phones at one point, and I didn't want to have 2 phones to separate film and construction it was, or to separate film and actually I was running events at a resort. And what would happen is I was like, I can't carry these 2 phones anymore. It's just doing my head in. So I went to one phone and I'd say, hello, Jessica speaking. And they'd be like, hi, it's Steve. And I wouldn't be able to be like, oh, yes, so it's about your event, Steve. That's fine, The worst thing is I would miss a call back. They'd say, oh, yeah, hi, it's, Jess from... I didn't know whether to say the construction company, the film company, or if it was about an event, so I would call back, and if I said Jess from BJS Group, they go, what is wrong with you? Like, I'm calling about Radioactive Pictures? Are you not a film producer? Like, I don't know what to say. Anyway, that's my story. It was a bit tricky to juggle. You've got to do it, though. If you don't do it, you've got to do that second job. You have to. I mean, you're privileged if you can go in and work as a crew member full-time, or do something like that, or work at Woolworths or work somewhere like that. I mean, I chose to do business at the same time because that was my background, and that was really tricky, but you got to do it, guys, because it's the only reason I am where I am today. I couldn't pay for all the things I had to do. I couldn't have enough money to go away and work on a film set for no money unless I did that at the same time. So.
That's a really good question, because with producing, it's generally, you're working on a project and you might spend years trying to get a project up. So how do you fund yourself for years while you're in development? And I've done a lot of things where I'm kind of researching and learning about different aspects of the business, because, there are so many different skills that do come under the producer umbrella. So I spent a lot of time overseas trying to go to these different markets to basically get to know distributors and film festival people and that sort of thing. But the only way that I could do that was to save up, work overtime. I was working in a call center for a long time, just trying to build up the cash so that I could then go and spend huge amounts of money while you're at the Cannes Film Festival or whatever. And that's one way that it can be done. But one thing that initially I think that would have really helped me to know back when I was in university is to actually be open to the idea of, I'm not just going to be working in film. It's okay if I do work in other roles. And the great thing is that when you do work in those other roles, you actually learn really useful skills that you then bring back to producing. Like, I was working in HR in Canada, and that is an incredibly valuable skill as a producer, because you're learning about payroll, you're learning about benefits, which is something that was definitely useful when you're doing a film, because you need to know that stuff. So,
like a production accountant.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so I thought I could do both. I thought, I was working for many years in sales and marketing. I went from book publishing to bathrooms. I was in bathrooms for a random amount of time. I know a lot about toilets if anybody wants to chat. A lot about plumbing, because, specifically so that I could have the creative space. I wasn't emotionally tied to toilets. I mean, I'm functionally, I appreciate them. But I'd been with a company for almost 7 years, and I was being paid well, and I was good at what I did, and I always kind of thought that I would kind of transition seamlessly from my role in bathrooms to being a screenwriter in Australia, which is such a well-trodden path. And I happen to have, I'm going to tread very carefully here, I had a situation with a male colleague that made me kind of understand that I maybe wasn't as supported in that business as I thought, and really kind of pushed me to the edge of what the fuck are you doing? Like, you know what you want to do with your life and with your time, and this kind of full-time something else isn't giving you the time to write and to elevate your craft. So I had a conversation with my boss where he's like, oh, you don't seem happy, and I'm like, yeah, I'll tell you why I'm not happy. And he's like, oh, you just need to learn to work around it. This is like pre-Me Too, so maybe then I would have whatever. But we walked back to the office, and within that 3-minute walk, I'm like, I am fucking quitting, and I am going to, I was just like, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And so that was like a real line in the sand moment for me. And essentially I ended up, after a year down in Melbourne, I took time off. I ended up moving back with my parents. I ended up spending my savings making those short films and going overseas and going to, labs, invitation labs and that kind of stuff, and spending the time just investing in myself and my craft. So I spent, a time where it's like I really wasn't earning, I was just spending, because I felt a very acute time pressure. I felt like I had come to that decision quite late, and that I needed to upskill as quickly as possible to kind of get to where I wanted to go.
I always think that it's no matter what age you actually come and decide that you want to pursue this industry, you feel that. Like, you feel that kind of like time pressure, like it needs to be right now.
Yeah.
But considering what you all said, it's interesting because you're talking about incorporating your other skill sets. But when you begin and people give you advice about maybe like a plan B, usually you're very resistant against that idea. Like, where does your opinion stand on that now?
I was kind of living my plan B. So for me, it has, since that time, and that was about 5 years ago, those aren't options. There is no sort of plan B, and so obviously that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself, but I felt like I was living it, and so having said that, I did some copywriting work. I did, I was trying to sort of supplement or kind of get work here or there until, I was going to be paid to write. But really I was kind of like, it's, it's this or nothing. It's this or nothing. I'm prepared to put in the work, plus more. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with Claire. From what I've met of people at really advanced levels, there's no plan B. It's your passion. You have to work so hard to get into the industry and make a lot of sacrifices. So, generally, if people have a plan B, they end up just doing it because it's, it's a viable option, and, the other one is kind of, not as easy as what you would like. So, yeah, that's the real reality of it. But, the good thing is that if you do decide to pursue that, you're going to be surrounded by people who are really passionate about what they're doing.
Can you ask the question again? Because I have a good, it's a reason. Yeah, go ahead.
So we were talking about how, considering all that you've done, having, when you first begin, people are very resistant, at least that's what I know of and have heard, of having a plan B. What are your opinions?
If you see it as a plan B, then it'll throw you off, and you may actually go for it. It is maybe the easier option, XYZ. In my opinion, that plan B wasn't actually the easier option, it was the more accepted option. And it was more accepted by everybody, my family, who are a big influence on your life as a young person. It was more accepted of even the school you went to. I used to say, I want to be an actress. I want to be an actress. And what did that even mean? What does it actually mean? And it's actually really hard because nobody actually understands this industry until they're a part of it. So having a plan B is okay. Having a plan B is fine, so long as you actually are going out and into the industry to feel what it is. because those people aren't going to know. And sometimes you actually can't get into the industry and have the people around you support you unless you are living part of that plan B, because that's society. And this industry doesn't have, like, not everybody gets into it. You can in some way, shape or form. You may come into it, as long as you come into it. Like, you can be living that Coles job, you could be running a business, you could be doing anything. As long as you come in and you just weasel your way into one part, like a short film, which I'll talk about later, but you weasel way into one part and you get to feel it, you're probably not going to do that one thing you thought, but all of a sudden, like, you're in it, and those other people, they don't really get it. So the plan B is sometimes important, is what I'm saying, and it was very important to me, or I probably wouldn't be here today. So a little bit different, tiny bit of a different perspective, but that's just because I guess it's just a different thing.
No, it's good. It's good. That's why we're here, all your different perspectives. And Jess, so what would your advice, I suppose, be to sustaining kind of that creative drive while you're having to kind of pursue either what you call like your day job or like your plan B, like on your way up? Like, when it's a long time, it seems that it's, like you've said, it's not just instant. How do you keep that driving?
Oh, it's really hard. It's hard as well when you get no's. You're going to get a lot of no's from a lot of people, and a lot of people saying, like, "Oh, get a real job, or get a real grip on life. You need to make money. You need to do this. Your plan B might actually, or your day job. I'm not going to call it plan B. I'm going to call it your day job. Might not actually earn you that much money, but it keeps you living." You need to remember the dream. You need to remember why you got there in the first place. For me, it's thinking about the way, I'm not going to get too deep with everyone here, but to me, for me, it's about remembering a feeling. And that feeling is when you're sitting in the cinema and a film ends and it leaves you believing in yourself. It leaves you believing about the world, that it can be better. And that feeling, if you remember it, and that's how I do it, if I remember it, that moment, that no, that like, why am I doing this, that all that sort of stuff, it means something that you keep pushing forward. So you need to do that. How do you go through it? You're going to go on a massive journey. You might not make it till you're 60 to 75, but you've got to remember that exact reason. You've got to have a reason.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in the majority of cases, I mean, there's always the person that goes out and makes their first film and makes $1 bajillion and gets in a can and all that. But it's really, the one thing I try to remember is that it's a marathon, not a sprint. And it could be something that you're literally, I don't want to, discourage anyone, but it could be something that, you do enjoy the journey, but it could take years, it could take decades to get to where you want to be. And that might involve working another job and then working on the film outside of that. And that can be pretty exhausting after, years. So it's, I think that the most important thing, and something that I've really tried to kind of change focus in the last few years, is to take care of yourself and make sure that you do get a bit of a break, because if you don't draw the line in the sand, no one else will, and you will just, you'll get to burnout, and then you'll get to burnt out, and like, it just keeps going. So yeah, that's what I think is really important to young filmmakers, because you really do see them, they're so excited and enthusiastic, and it's something that you might need to be maintaining that level of energy in quite some time. So yeah.
I have loved those answers, and I've forgotten the fucking question. So I'm so sorry. What, like, about sustaining the? I think that you can fail doing something that you love, and you can fail doing something that you don't love. I think that remembering that, remembering that you're going to die one day, and that you're either going to have tried or you're not going to have tried, I think is kind of, when it really comes down to it, it's like what you spend your time doing is again, depending how many mouths you have to feed or how much privilege you have, or, there's a lot of factors to that. But essentially, you can fail at something that you hate. And so why not fail at something you love, and at least know that you've done that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, to talk about you guys more individually based on things that you've done, I'm interested to hear what you think the project was that was like your fork in the road moment for like success that you've had and like your companies, like what you think was the project.
I've got the microphone. I don't know. Like like if you'd asked me before Eden, I would have, like at the moment I'm like, I guess it's Eden because that's my first TV credit. But if you'd asked me before that, I would have said Winding Road, and before that, it was Freudian Slip. I don't think that that's happened for me yet. Like I've got some stuff that really would be, like career defining, but that, like I think it's just like that stepping stone, that escalation. So I feel like probably Eden, at the moment, but I would hope that in the next 6 months to a year that changes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a hard one because there are so many different kinds of milestones. Like I remember back when I first started, I was so excited just to get my first IMDb credit. I was like, look, because it's hard when you don't have the connections. And I went on to do the film called Tender, which got government funding. So I think that was a really big step for me producing career-wise. You've also got the different types of roles that you do in the industry as well. As you're, building your producing career, you can go in, and I worked in the production office in a few different projects. One that kind of, I guess, is probably affecting me today is when I worked as a production secretary on a TV series called Canine a few years ago. And so there I was able to meet a really amazing writer who created the series, and still working with him today. So.
Yeah, I think it evolves. I think you go through that with every different project that comes. For me, I've had an interesting journey from. Everyone's had an interesting journey, but from really just wanting to be on a film and doing anything. Then the next fork in the road, and getting that, and the IMDb credit. Then the next fork in the road, which was, oh my gosh, now I'm a full producer. Like I raised money. Like, wow, oh God, all right. Now that's the fork in the road. Now I'm going to make it, right? No, not yet. Still not. So then you go on the next thing, and now, a couple of years ago, but then, you got your first title that you distribute, and you're like, distributor. And then you're like, what's going on now? And then there's a fork in the road happening for me right this second, and it keeps happening. But I think that's a wonderful journey that this industry can bring you.
Yeah, just keep looking out for those like fork in the road moments, and they just keep.
Just watch out for forks in general.
True, very true. Well, I think you guys downplay your successes way too much. I think especially for people in this room, like for what you have achieved and what you've done, and the companies that you have, and all your credits. Like it's all very exciting, and I know personally, and I also think people in this room, when you begin, because there isn't a straight pathway, you have a lot of like, I really don't know what my next step is, I don't feel like I know what I'm doing, and you think that you'll get like your foot in the door a little bit, and then you will figure it out. Do you still have those I have no idea what I'm doing moments?
Every day. I don't know if I should share one, but maybe later. No. It's all right. No, yeah, you do every day, and you just get better. Either A, at pretending you know for that moment, and then just getting through the call and then figuring it out right then and there, because like I should have known that. The amount of times that happens, my goodness. Because I've gone into like from production now, I could safely say like I've got a pretty good handle on that, right? In most aspects. But then coming into a newer field for me, I am getting that all the time. Like just little phrases or words, things that are in agreement that you're like, and they're like, yeah, so we're looking for these rights to this film, and they say this word, and you're like, yep, cool, wonderful. Don't want to agree to it because I have no idea what I'm giving you. Yeah, so that happened to me like a year ago with a massive, yeah, long story, but that does happen, yeah, and it keeps happening, but that's growing in your career, that's growing in your role. Nobody really is going to know everything. You just get better and better at it every day, and I find those moments exciting because you learn something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, producing is kind of a catch-all word, really. Like, you have to make sure that film happens. So you could find yourself doing pretty much anything in the name of that. So yeah, you're definitely going to, during the course of your producing career, have a lot of I don't know what I'm doing moments. So yeah, definitely.
I guess because I would say I'm a screenwriter first, director second, producer third. I only, have produced my own work. I don't have much interest in producing other people's works. It's fairly self-serving. But I think in terms of those I don't know what I'm doing sort of moments, the real kind of aim for me early on was to kind of bridge a skill gap. Like I wanted to upskill in my writing very quickly and avoid those moments, which, obviously, everybody's learning, you're always evolving, etc. But I wanted to get, I was very focused on getting to a level of skill that meant that I could talk with confidence and create with confidence, not just create with confidence, but talk with confidence in a writer's room and just creatively and generally to be able to kind of communicate my vision or push back when I wanted to push back or, do the things that would allow me to execute a vision. So I probably, in my day-to-day writing, I'm I don't have, I feel pretty confident with that, but when I look at something like directing, which I do less, or producing that I do less, yeah, of course, I have those moments. And luckily I've produced with Danielle Redford, who is an amazing producer, and we have a very complementary skill set, so it's nice to feel supported in that way, and it's not just me.
Yeah, definitely. And in the industry, it's very rare that you do one role. All of you have lots of different credits and titles to your name. So I suppose, as you said, you feel more confident in one, perhaps not the other. So I'm glad you actually brought up Danielle. So because I want to talk about this business as a who you know, not always what you know, and a lot of you have long-time collaborators. And I was just wondering if we could do quick little answers about what your opinion is on that kind of statement. Is this really who you know, not what you know? Obviously, to make sure of both, but what do you think?
I think everybody, in any kind of talk, they'll be find your tribe, find your people, and I think that is just, it has to be true unless you're the one person going out and shooting and editing and doing everything. You should be, on top of everything else that you're doing, upskilling your particular craft and, et cetera, you should be trying to find your people because it makes it infinitely easier. Just to feel that you are supported, that somebody, that somebody understands you, that you're coming up kind of on the same level. And I think that when you both, with the people around you, when you both think you're the lucky one, I think that's kind of the dynamic to aim for. But it's really fucking difficult, it's so difficult to find those people, but you just have to kind of persevere. But you also have to be that person for somebody else. You have to actually understand that, it's am I not finding my people? It's what am I putting out there? What energy am I kind of, what am I doing as well?
People forget that.
Yeah.
That's interesting to read up, because I haven't thought of it that way.
Yeah. Do people want to be around me? What value am I bringing? Because if you're not bringing that value, then you're going to find it. The quality of the people available to you is not going to be what you want, maybe.
Yeah, I think in a way it is who you know, but not in the way you kind of mean. great. You know, if you know Martin Scorsese, fantastic. But if, you know, when I approach a film, I always try and be creating good relationships with my crew and my cast, so that you can get to a point where you just don't even need to find any new crew, because you're like, oh no, I've got this amazing group of people that I already work with. So I think that's definitely the dream, that even if, you know, they're not necessarily names or whatever, like, you want to be building the people that you love working with, and having a good on-set environment is incredibly important as well, even more so now than ever. So yeah, but obviously, you know, you're going to get to a point where you are kind of mixing with people who might have more experience, and that's always a good thing too. So it's kind of a bit of a combination.
Yeah, to build on that, just completely agree with that. I think it's the energy and what you're looking for. It's what you're going to put out too. I think for a long time, I mean, I went with this one kind of cohort, this one kind of crew, and, you know, we did a couple films, but we didn't look out, you know, further to a different way of doing things. And the way we were doing things was not the best. It was not really working for us. We were so passionate. We found money. We did X, Y, Z, but we couldn't take things to the next level until we actually took a step back, branched out, looked for new people, networked, just got involved in different things. For me, really broadening the scope for me, even in production and producing, was distribution, because that was a whole different set of people that come at a different stage that actually influence that stage. And that really, and broadening, the second you open yourself up and you actually look for it, those people, your tribe, they're there. You just got to find them.
And a question for Claire and Liz. So both of you guys made it as ones to watch in 2020, one of the craziest years of the industry. That's a really big deal, and it's also worth mentioning that in Queensland it was all females that won ones to watch. Yes. So that was like a very, very cool thing. I want to know kind of that experience, I suppose. Like, what was that like? Did you find out by like phone, email? How did it feel? Just some comments on that part.
Well, I found out by phone, but I was, during that process, I mean, I was literally applying for the ones to watch while I was in quarantine. Like, this seems like a good idea. And yeah, it was, I was really honoured to be chosen, and it was just a wonderful way to be coming back to Australia. But it was incredible, like all of the business courses that they gave to us that really, you know, helps bring things up a level. And once we actually got to screen forever, it was incredible that we could had all these specific round tables with top Hollywood showrunners and Netflix, and yeah, like, it was definitely worth it. And I would suggest everyone, if you do have the opportunity to put in. So.
I was excited. I hadn't applied before, and I hadn't thought of applying before. I think, you know, it's interesting with Winding Road. You know, like I talked about Danielle before, and I would have been, if she had said to me, like, okay, so I'm going to be producer and, you know, you're directing and writing the whole thing, and I would have been like, great, fine. But she didn't. She was like, you are going to produce, and I think that you should, you know, have that credit. And I think that, you know, like, that is equitable, and I would not, you know, I wouldn't want to do it another way. And having that kind of person that sort of backed me in that producing capacity, because I'd done my short films and I'd done the web series, but to me, I was kind of like, well, I'm managing maximum a crew of like 25, and I was like, nah, you know, what do you, like, you know, like, I'm producing because I have to, but to have somebody kind of saying, like, no, you know, you will be producing, and you are a producer, and, you know, we produced, and I was a creative producer, and she, you know, did more like all of the other stuff. But I produced all that original music, and to have somebody acknowledge that, and then I kind of was like, okay, well, I felt confident to apply for Ones to Watch, where previously maybe I wouldn't have. And it's been a really nice kind of, it was a nice confirmation for me to be able to go, like, no, fuck it. Like, this is what essentially I want to be a showrunner. Like, that's where I want to sort of end up. And we don't have that model, particularly in Australia. But that's the work I would be doing. And I can own that, and I'm going to own that, so. Yeah.
Well, congratulations, like that's amazing. So, actually, there was a really big moment this year that captured the attention of a lot of people in the film industry, and you may have heard of it. But it might not actually be the controversy you remember. It was actually this tweet here that was sent out addressing an accidental email sent out by an intern. So, this led to hundreds of people sharing their intern moments with a thread, hashtag Dear Intern. And we've been lucky enough to hear about you from your beginnings to your big achievements. But a career, as you've said, is not purely built on successes. It's built on learning through failure. I want to know your intern moment and what you learned from that. And Claire, you can start.
Thanks. I'm like, it's funny because, like I've kind of worked for, like I've produced my own stuff. I've worked for myself a lot of the time. So I'm not going to have anything as fun as that. I think probably the closest is shooting at my neighbour's house in Melbourne, and then him having a massive night and sleeping, I think probably going home for a one night stand somewhere else, and then not being able to get into his apartment to shoot on the first day. That's probably kind of it. And I should have got a key beforehand, or whatever. And he used to Airbnb it illegally, so I found it in the washing machine. So I've we got in. But I think in general, like that kind of intern moment of like, oh, what the, like, oh fuck, I fucked up, for me has kind of come. It's more of a slow burn where when I haven't trusted my instincts, generally about, like people, I think I think we're so focused and potentially rightly so, because you just kind of have to do it, especially as a writer, where you're kind of like working for free and you're kind of, somebody wants you to sort of do this thing and you're like, okay, well, this could be a thing and whatever. Those oh fuck moments have come when I have ignored my gut, and, I've then kind of gotten too deep into a situation where I'm like, this person is either, I don't want to say crazy because I don't like using that sort of terminology, but like this person does not align with my values, or like there's a big disparity in terms of taste or skill level or like whatever it is, and like now I'm going to have to extricate myself from this situation where if I had trusted my gut and nowadays I kind of, like, knock on wood, do, those are the moments that I've been like, oh, fuck.
It's hard, but I think probably my closest intern moment was when I went to university and had a uni friend after I graduated who asked me to come in, and like we were just going to make a uni film like together, with nothing huge or anything, just shoot something and see what happened. And so we started doing this, and before, like, it just kind of kept getting bigger, and then some other people got involved, and before we knew it, we had like a WWE wrestler starring in this film, and we're like, hey, this is a little bit more than I anticipated. And I'm like, and I'm production manager. Like not having had any experience or exposure to being on a film set before, first day, people are like, so where's the call sheet? And I'm like, what is this call sheet that you speak of? So yeah, that's kind of, this is how we learn.
Yeah, the call sheet thing happened to me too. And my title was producer. Anyway, look, I have many moments, so many, lots and lots of things. There's one I actually thought of while sitting here, because I was racking my brain. I was like, what's one of the most embarrassing? It's been a lot, like almost dropping the red camera, like, dropping lenses, handing the lens continually the wrong way to the DOP, just the wrong way constantly, and picking it up with my fingers on the lens. Like, I was terrible. I mean, I thought it was good. Anyway, the funniest one, it's going to be hard to explain without a demonstration, but there is a dolly track. There is a camera on the dolly track. Camera gets taken off. I think we're packing up. Everything's going great. It's held up by some wood stocks, the chops, and I took a couple out and I was like, oh, this is all going really well. And then I like kind of leant up on it to kind of maneuver myself. I was like working really fast. I was like, here we go. Anyway, the dolly bar just comes like bang. Guess who was standing across it but one of the grips? Yes, it got him in the nuts. Yes, I don't have any better way to say that, but that's one of the best things. That was when I used to multitask as producer, first AD, and also first AC, which was one of my favourite roles ever. But Dad, don't give me your lenses. Yeah,
I think that was worthy one of the tweets up there. Okay, so, all right, I'm glad that we've heard your intern moment. Considering that and how you've grown, you really would have had to put that, I suppose, to the test last year in 2020 during COVID. And we have to talk about COVID because it just changed the industry, especially in Australia. Claire, we just passed the parcel down to Claire. You did a podcast last year. Mm-hmm. Was that born from not being able to be on set? Was that super convenient? Like, how did that kind of work with the COVID situation?
It wasn't born from not being able to be on set. We got funding through Screen Queensland's Proof of Concept initiative. So the podcast was based on a feature film that I'd written, and I then turned it into 8 episodes. Like, it was supposed to be half hour, but they ended up being longer. What are you going to do? And it was actually tough because it was sort of August last year when Melbourne was definitely dodgy. Melbourne was bad. Sydney had a little bit of a breakout. Queensland was fine. And we had originally wanted to fly everybody to Queensland and be in Folklore Studios because they had a great space. And you can kind of, you can record everybody together. And then we couldn't do that. So we ended up having to have the so there were 6 main actors. So we had Dacre Montgomery from Stranger Things, Yael Stone, who is Orange is the New Black, and David Berry, who was Outlander, down in Sydney. Danielle and I drove down to Sydney, and that was when it's like, oh, there's a bit of an outbreak, whatever. And then we had somebody else production managing up here in Folklore. We had Noni Hazelhurst, Anna McGahn, and Gabrielle Rogers, and we had what do they call it? I've forgotten it. There's a kind of link up that you can kind of use, and everybody could kind of hear each other in the cans, and it was tough because we did have technical difficulties. But the place that we recorded down in Sydney, Deluxe, I think it was, they had amazing protocols. So it's like you got scanned on the way in, like your temperature, and like a big alert went out to like everybody via email if you were running a temperature. Like there was lots of protocols. And, everybody was 6 feet apart, and we kind of managed it, but it also meant that we had to record every single other voice voice actor separately. So I then was recording, Danielle came back and was in quarantine to get back into Queensland. I ended up staying with my parents in northern New South Wales and remotely directing 20 actors and then editing that together with from placeholder dialogue. I feel a bit of PTSD thinking about it. I don't know what the question was. Yeah, I feel very triggered right now.
What was the question?
During COVID,
yeah.
I know actually you came back from Canada during the peak of, it was beginning to get in over here.
Yep.
How did it impact your career in 2020? You won an award, but what projects did you work on, or you just settled back to Australia?
Yep. Well, I mean, my main aim was just to get back to Australia at the time. It's, I see a real opportunity because, Australia is so attractive internationally now. So as a result, I was trying to get back so that we could basically we've bought land in a regional area, and we're looking to set up a studio there. So, ideally we're going to be looking to attract films out into our little film haven, and so that's how I kind of. I always think it's important to try and look at things as an opportunity as well. Like where are the things that you can do with the circumstances that you're in, and so that's what we're really trying to play up to at the moment. Hey, like there's a lot of opportunity, I think. We'll see how it goes, because up until just recently, it's been like, all about Australia. But now that the rest of the world is opening up, and we still have our 2-week quarantine to get in, all of a sudden it's like, we'll see. I hope that the momentum does continue. But yeah, that's the main thing that I've been kind of working on for now.
And Jess, I know with Ruby's Choice, which was something that was filmed last year, it had delays due to an outbreak.
Due to the whole of COVID. So we were ready to go filming. We were 10 days out from our shoot. We'd spent hundreds of thousands and we were ready to shoot. We had Jane Seymour booked in, ready to come over, and luckily she hadn't got on a plane because she would never have come back. But we paused the shoot because COVID started, and we were going to be shooting here in Brisbane. And we paused it. We just had to basically let a lot of crew go. It was not a nice time, but it was a really uncertain time for everyone. What we managed to do in the meantime was convince Jane Seymour's agent that she should still come to Australia, that she should fly in the middle of COVID, but that wasn't until we started shooting on July 27th. So we had a few months break, but we moved the whole production to Sydney, where the director is, where the cinematographer is, where most of the crew were. We had to rehire the whole crew as Sydney-based because we couldn't take the risk, that there would be too many people that would have issues if there were border closures. So there was only the writer and myself from Queensland, and production Simone as well. So, we were, a bit scared going into it, but we weren't the only ones shooting at that time in Australia. There was one just before us, the Children of the Corn, who actually filmed right before us in Windsor, outside Sydney, which is where we decided to film and reset the whole film because it worked perfectly. And so we went out there. Jane Seymour quarantined for 2 weeks in a hotel room because we tried to get onto the minister, we tried to get onto everybody. We're still independent filmmakers at that stage, and we're trying to get her in. But she said, no, I don't want any special treatment, because otherwise I'm going to be all over the news. Because right before then, I forget who was the famous Nicole Kidman. She's just let to come into the country, go home. That's when Jane's like, no, you know what? I'll paint on the walls. So she started painting in this place, and it actually got a lot of good publicity. So it was great. But no, COVID was a real challenge. We, as an independent film, had already had to relocate from Queensland to New South Wales. We'd already spent a lot of our pre-production money up here. We had to redo the whole film. I feel like I filmed it twice, but we went down there. There were a lot of challenges with COVID, a lot more money that, we had to follow a really strict set of guidelines to film during that time. It was a real challenge. I had to quarantine coming back, and that was another challenge in itself. But aside from the wine tasting, I wasn't offered a wine tasting. Apparently Liz was in her quarantine. There wasn't a sense of community at the Pullman Brisbane Airport. Anyway, so look, it was a difficult time, but we were so fortunate to be able to shoot still, and that Jane Seymour still came because she wasn't coming again. She wasn't going to come again.
All interesting journeys. Okay, well, a slight topic change. So having an all-female panel was personally something I really strived for and was really excited about for tonight. It's common knowledge that there is a degree of gender disparity in most industries, and definitely within the film industry. So much so that Screen Queensland created the Gender Initiative in 2016, which aim was to balance gender diversity and incentivise women filmmakers. So I'd like to know your opinions, I suppose, about being a woman in film, and whether in the last 5 or so years since the initiative started, you feel like you've been given those opportunities. How do you feel that's going?
I think it's been good as a whole, definitely. I haven't, I seeked out a few opportunities. It might have just not been my time at the time, with Screen Queensland and things like that a few years ago. But as as far as it goes, it's difficult, but it's difficult in a lot of industries. If I compare, the only comparison I've got for you is I also run in construction, right? And that is very different, right? But that is an extreme, and you know what? The men across both are doing a lot to be better. They're doing a lot to, and this is not everyone, most men are 100% fine, but the people who used to have a bit of difficulty with it, with female in leadership positions, running the show or being on their par, it's now just something that people are being mindful of and actually recognising and actually bringing out. And I think it's great because there is that gender disparity. It's quite obvious in a lot of settings. I've sat in many rooms where it's hugely obvious, and you sit there and no one needs to go over it. Everybody's heard of it. It is there, but you know what? It's gotten a hell of a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. Like even in the last few years, just completely changed, but it's still got a long way to go. I mean, I was really shocked when I went to Cannes a year or so ago, and there was I actually met a Sundance selector, and I said to her, look, surely by now you are getting swamped with women's, projects, like you must just be like full. And she's like, no, it's like still like 20%. Like, so yeah, definitely a long way to go, but yeah, it's something that it's just going to be an ongoing process. I think it's not going away for a long time. So it's going to be something that every day we're all working on, and it's such a pleasure to be working in a different environment. Not that I've really had any experiences, but I do wonder what opportunities did I miss out on that I didn't even know about. So, yeah.
Agree. Yeah, I think it's difficult because we've gotten better, but there is still issues, and there's still sort of micro, insidious, just kind of, deep-rooted kind of stuff. And I just think the more women you can get into leadership roles, and big roles and roles where we're telling our authentic stories, and that, obviously extends past just women, but to different kind of views in general, the better. I think, but that process can take a while because it takes a while to kind of weed out the people that are not being helpful in that respect, or are doing things for kind of disingenuous kind of, box ticking kind of reasons, but still wanting to tell the same kind of stories. And I think the most interesting stories are coming from people whose perspectives we have seen little of, because of course that's more fucking interesting, because they're less told, be that women or different groups.
Great. Well, now that we know a little bit more about you, and all of you, we are going to have a look at some of your recent work. So we've got some trailers coming up that will give the audience a taste of your film portfolio. Just a reminder, we actually have some audience questions coming up shortly after this, so I would use this time to have a look at their work and get thinking about something to ask them.
I haven't seen this one before.
That lady's loco.
For her, it is new.
Are you okay, Mum?
She keeps talking about your father like he's still alive.
She's not losing it, but I might if you don't stop.
I spoke to the fireys. It started in the kitchen.
The house insurance.
I'll get your father to do all those things.
Shit.
Mum, could you help out around the house while we're at work?
There you go.
Oh my God, Ollie. Grandma, what the hell? It's like she doesn't even think it's her fault.
It's her age.
I wish you had called first, mate.
It's not just me.
Mum, I'm not sharing my room.
Well, you want to take the double bed with Grandma?
If you sold all this junk, you might even have enough for a deposit.
What we need right now is someone to come and look after her while I'm at work. So you got to be practically dead before you get any assistance? Why'd you paint me something happy, Mum?
What about Tash? We could take her out of school.
Are you actually, like, totally insane?
I've been missing that.
Missing what?
Your smile.
Free ice cream.
If I'm going to paint, I'm going to need some inspiration. Frank promised me that you'll always love me.
It's me, Tash.
It could be sundowners.
Well, that doesn't sound good.
I have one.
What?
A baby.
What if it's hereditary?
It's not going to rain. Ruby!
How could you lose her?
You hit really hard, and you scream really loud, and you run.
Back off!
It's beautiful, huh?
We'll work it out together.
I thought we could take care of her.
Would it help if I tell you I love you?
Sometimes people learn that whole life's been a lie.
Don't be daft.
It's her life.
It's Ruby's choice.
It's Ruby's choice.
We just don't want to appear too sexually successful.
Our dick is mesmerising.
Let's stick a finger up his bum.
Ask for a thumb.
Oh, fuck. That's right.
At least now we can tell her some of our poo jokes.
Is he doing the alphabet on our pee hole?
Now for our signature move.
Men love it when you say cock.
You can put that in our asshole.
That's just the brain secreting more oxytocin and dopamine. Because we're in love.
Different each one of those ones was. Claire, with yours, which was the last one we just saw, Fruity and Slip, I watched one episode and then I watched another and another and then I watched them all. And they were just so funny, they're hilarious, but also very bold, as we saw. Is that something you need to get recognised, funding, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, like we shot that over 2 days, and we ended up with, like, that was shot in my parents' bedroom, which is very Freudian, and a bathroom. We got 20 minutes of footage essentially over 2 days. We worked incredibly quickly, and that was all self-funded. I think it cost about $8,000 all up. We had called in a lot of favors. I wanted to be bold. I think because the shorts that I'd done before were quite dark, and I was like, comedy is a real part of who I am as a writer, so I wanted to sort of just do a straight comedy. But I think I wasn't thinking about being bold, I was thinking about, what is this actually, why do I want to tell these stories? And all of that stuff was kind of based on a period of my life when that didn't all exactly happen to me, but it was inspired by a period of my life when I was doing a lot of dating, and I felt a huge amount of anxiety around the choices that I was making, these micro choices in the moment of what to do and what to say. And there was that generalized anxiety of am I going to fuck this up? And I felt very strongly about communicating that. So for me, it wasn't about being bold, it was about saying thematically something that I wanted to say.
And Liz, with the one that you saw, so that was with a company that you worked with while you were in Canada. Yeah, and they're interesting for a special reason. That they're one of the only ones from the Arctic.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. So basically, it's a production, a publication company that is 100% Indigenous owned, and it's the only one in the Arctic. Yeah. So
you assisted obviously with this one, and then you come back to Australia, and now you're working on Queensland Regional Film Services and running Mantis Entertainment as well. Tell me, elaborate on those things.
Gosh, okay, so there's a lot going on since we got back. Basically, with Queensland Regional Film Services, I mentioned that before, we're looking particularly for regional stories as well. So, it's going to be a big move at some point. We'll be relocating out there. And with running Mantis, we're actually just launching that. It's the family brand of Dicentium Films, which we've been putting together a bunch of different projects I'm very excited about. One being the Canine project, which I mentioned earlier. There's a Public Domain, which is a collaboration with Art Spear, which is a YouTube channel. And what else do you want to know?
And Jess.
Hi.
With Ruby's Choice, something interesting that I came across was that 50% of the profits were being donated. Elaborate.
Yeah, so 50% of the profits are going to Dementia Care Australia or Dementia Care International. So the Glenn Family Foundation is run by Sir Owen Glenn. He's a philanthropist. He's from New Zealand, and he agreed to fund the film fully only if 50% of profits were going back into dementia care. So it's really following that philanthropic angle. We're really trying to give back to the community with this, and people that were involved with this. Jacqueline McKenzie, Jane Seymour, even Stephen Hunter, everybody was in this, almost taking a small pay cut to actually know that everything that they're working for here is going to be going back into the community. What we wanted to do was raise a conversation about dementia. We wanted people to know that when you have dementia, and when you even if it's early onset, if it starts to come on, you're still a valued member of that family and of society. What Ruby, Jane's character, actually does and teaches us in this film is that she actually changes this whole family's lives just by, even you saw it up there saying a very small thing like, if you sold all this, you could save enough for a deposit. she's giving her opinion. She's still very much in this world, and everybody involved with this, including myself, was fully touched by dementia. My grandmother raised me, and she got dementia, and I had to watch her go through this exact thing. It is a debilitating disease. It's something that is touching everybody now, so many people. It's so out there. So we feel it's so important that the profits go back into this. We feel it's an important message for the public when it goes to cinemas in February next year. Please go along, please support it, guys, because it's a great message and it's something that's going to touch all your lives at some point.
So I prepared so many questions for tonight, but the answers are just too good. And so I've only got one left for all of you before we hit the audience segment. And this one is directly affecting all of you here today. They're in the film industry. So in Queensland, there's a lot of great press about all the big films that are coming here, but I want to know, on a more personal level, how is it actually affecting like independent filmmakers, and what would be your advice for people to take advantage of this?
I'm only going to give a short answer because I feel very passionately about this. Look, the crew that has come out of this happening, and the Australian crew now is world class. We are amazing, right? And having all this studio money coming, attracting all of this, the huge positive here is now we are some of the most world class in the world. Amazing crew. We know how to shoot a movie. We can do these amazing productions, but and being an independent filmmaker, it has made it more expensive. It has made it a little bit more tricky to actually get things off the ground at that level, especially at Ruby's Choice level. You know, $2.5 million budget. It was very tricky to keep it at that, to work to that, to get the right level for the screen. People are expecting more now. I'm so passionate about it. I won't say much more. I think it's an amazing thing for our crew. I really hope the productions do keep coming for that reason, for the economy as well. But as an independent filmmaker, it is a little tougher in that respect.
What was it? As an independent filmmaker, I mean, it's always been hard, but you know, you just try and roll with the punches. And we've been really lucky to have a producers association that is working really hard. You know, I know they're actually working with producers associations around the world to have this amazing COVID policy that enables us to continue actually working, because otherwise we'd be just one of the industries that was shut down. So yeah, it's and we're even seeing that with other industries that have previously been, you know, able to go ahead, and now they're like having restrictions. So it's really incredible that we've got the situation that we're in now, and we're not really going to have any more roadblocks. So I think really we just need to try and make the most of the opportunity, because we've got this is not it's not every day that you have a pandemic event where you are actually the safest place to be in the world. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't think much about it, in terms of like, you know, like you see it kind of come up and you're like, oh, they've gotten this and they've gotten that, and like, it's amazing. I think that there are definitely opportunities for people, you know, with the attachments that Screen Queensland gets these productions to provide. I think that there's great opportunities there. If you're a director or production designer, you know, like there's a lot of attachments. But for me, I'm like, oh, cool, that's good, that's happening. But like, I'm kind of like blinkers on in terms of, you know, I think you can get really caught up in like, oh, what's, you know, why are they doing this, or why, you know, like, or this will do this. And until you're directly affected by it, which I'm not, I'm just kind of like working on my projects. Yeah, like I probably don't have much of an opinion, but I think that there is opportunities, and thank goodness, like I'm glad that the Queensland government is making those opportunities, you know, like making those productions provide those kind of upskilling opportunities.
Yeah, it's been said a lot that this is kind of the perfect time for those in the Australian screen industry to kind of just like get into the nitty-gritty, attach yourself to anything, and just get stuck in it. Mm-hmm. Well, we're actually to the part where you can now ask some questions. So we have the opportunity, or you have the opportunity, to ask any panel of the any member of the panel or the panel as a whole a question about themselves, about the industry, I would just want to remind you that we actually have 2 prizes as well to kind of incentivize you to get thinking really hard. So Tiana couldn't be here, but is still offering a prize for a consultation session. So if you have a film idea, a script ready, or you want to practice your pitching, you can do this to someone who works in acquisitions and development. Like it's their job to decide what projects to go through. And then Liz has also offered an entertainment pathway type of bundle where she'll sit with you and give you proper advice about like the steps that you need to take. So in saying that, let's just get started. So if you have a question, and I hope you do because I had to skip so many questions tonight to make in time. I just have a think, but then put your hands up and we'll go through them, okay? Okay, great. Yes.
I just heard that part of the distributing, choosing which stories to go through, but if I could address the panel as a whole, when it comes to looking for scripts and deciding what kind of stories you want to bring out there, is there something particularly you look for in scripts or the story as a whole when choosing what to produce and invest your time and money in?
Okay. I think from a screenwriter's perspective, understanding the thematic resonance, like what you're actually trying to say, like understanding why you want to tell a story. And I think that for me, like projects where people are like, oh, would you like to like pitch on this, or would you like to, be attached to this, whatever. I get a little bit kind of scared when it's clear that somebody doesn't know what they're actually saying or why they're telling a story, or is kind of confused about that. So for me, like part of me being able to pitch to people, take stories further, is that I have generally a very clear idea of why I'm telling that story and what I'm actually trying to say. And if I don't, then maybe that's something I need to sort of shelve for a little while until I do.
I think it's partly about what you automatically kind of sense is a great idea. So there's that, but also something that's really strong in its genre, or it makes sense, so that when you do take it to sales agents, you can say, this is a thriller, this is a, it makes it easier to sell that way, and it's generally better stories, because when you're actually using the genre rules, then you are building on a whole heap of history there. But the main thing I'm actually looking at the moment with the regional studio is regional stories, so that's a big focus for me at the moment.
Yeah, exactly as they've both said, but it's know your genre. Know what it is you are telling. It's so important. If you're going to pursue it, firstly, is that important to you? Do you understand it? Really understand all facets of that genre, whatever it is you've got that you want to make, or if you want to try and sell it to someone, like you're a writer and you want to get a producer on board, know about what you've got. What is this product and what is its strongest points? And really how do they fit with the genre that then sells to the audience? What does the audience want from it?
Great, all right, hands back up for those that didn't see it. Oh gosh. Okay, you back, yeah?
Me? Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm very quiet, so I'll try my best.
We can hear you, yeah.
Okay, cool. So to give you some context, I'm not a filmmaker, but I'm studying architecture. So I'm a bit interested in set design and how that works, which is, I guess it seems like it's a bit of smoke and mirrors, where it's something that happens in the background, but like creates a big effect on setting the mood and like the background, literally. So my question is, how much time and effort do you put into that creative process, and what are the opportunities you see and challenges?
If we could, we might get one person who, responds directly to that question. But not for me.
Do you want to? I'm happy to if you don't want to. Yeah, that's fine. So specifically relating to set design? So I guess for all of us, it's not been our specific strength. There may be people in the room with more strength in that, but how much time and thought do you put into it? It's an entire department. it is imperative that department pulls their weight and gets it 100% correct as to the story. You know, set design is just another element for the screen, as important as the actor, I will say. It's the colours you see in the background and how that influences the story. It's the way the shapes, the way the feels in the background, the pictures on the wall, just the very makeup of that set is what goes on the screen. It needs to work in with the way you're shooting it. It needs to make sense to the story, or you can completely throw off this brilliant writing that you've got. You can completely throw off that dialogue with something in the back that just doesn't make sense. So it's a whole department. They spend weeks and weeks and weeks, you know, taking the script apart and figuring out what each item means to the story. It's another story element of its own.
Great. Hand back up, please.
Oh, goodness.
Yes.
So I'm wanting to get into DOP or being a cinematographer. And my question for those who have directed is, how do you interact with your cinematographers? Because I know it differs from director to director, so I just want to get your opinion on that.
Is this a question for Claire, probably? Claire.
Thank you. How do I interact? Like communicating a lot beforehand and making sure that that we're on the same page, that they understand the vision, and that we are in agreement, you know, upon everything. But also the DOPs that I've worked with, that I've most enjoyed working with, have a very functional understanding of story and why I'm doing something, and how they can do their jobs to facilitate the story that we're telling. That they're not just looking for pretty shots, or that, you know, like they're not just looking for something for their reel, that they understand how their job impacts the storytelling in a practical way. And, you know, like I work with Ben Cotgrove on Freudian Slip, and he is such an instinctual storyteller who happens to be an amazing DOP. So for me, knowing that when he was suggesting something, he wasn't suggesting it because he wanted some wanky shot. He was suggesting it because he thought that I would need it in the edit, or he was suggesting it because, you know, for a multitude of reasons. And I think that feeling confident in that has been my best kind of experiences with DOPs.
Great, okay, we'll keep going. We'll make sure we'll just do like a quick round so we can get through as many questions as possible. Yeah, up the back.
Hey, my name's Angus. Thanks first and foremost to everyone for speaking. It's been incredible. I've actually got a question for Claire, not about plumbing, but
what?
It's just about in terms of your motivation to create and write. Is it does it flow on from an idea, or are you motivated to make it, and that's how you find the idea?
I mean, I could talk about creative ideation all day. I think that I think we don't talk about creative, like that sort of minutiae of like what happens in people's brains, and the fact that you know, you make assumptions around the fact that you think that everybody experiences the world in the same way as you, and that is completely incorrect. Down to the fact that like I don't have a mind's eye. I can't imagine anything, like, you know, when people are like, oh, you know, count sheep. I thought that was a fucking metaphor. Like, people can actually see sheep, apparently. Like, people can imagine things. Like, so my understanding of how my brain works, like I hear conversations between people. Like, I hear characters, and a lot of the time, a lot of things, they might start off as an idea, or it'll start off as a conversation, and usually it'll be like a sort of climactic conversation that I then work back from. That wasn't really, yeah, I don't know. It's a mix of both, I would say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right. And we're back. Yes.
I've got a completely self-serving question. I'm going to take that opportunity. Some background. I went to uni with Taylah, so I'm only out of uni for this year. But I was extremely lucky through some networks I made through some student films, and I've had worked on two feature films.
but that network has dried up, and I'm getting told by people I've worked with that the role I do is in demand and that there are other films out there, but I'm not being able to find anything. So I guess the question is, where do you look for crew when you're looking outside of your network? Where should I make sure I get myself?
Yeah, Liz.
Well, really, I mean, organically it just kind of happens through word of mouth. So I'll ask crew that I already have, hey, do you know someone who is like, we need a art set designer or whatever. So that's just a natural way that things are always going to happen. If it gets to the point where you actually just need to find a list of people and start calling, then that's when you would kind of advertise, or, I mean, I haven't been back in Australia for too long, so I'm not sure of all the different little tricks, but definitely in Toronto there was a website called mandy.com where you could just, you know, put something up there. So
Production book.
Yeah, is that it?
Listed, yeah.
Cool.
Just recently, yeah.
Yes.
Really lost being up on the production book.
So that's a good one. Oh, is Screen Hub another one? Yeah.
Screen Hub or Screen Queensland crew.
Yeah.
You know, just be up there, be on there, listed.
But the other thing is watch the news. Like I got my first gig on a Spielberg production by, I read a article about how a Band of Brothers or something was coming to northern Queensland, and I ended up actually hunting down, somehow finding through the council the production officer's number. They gave me the number, I couldn't believe it. And then I called the production officer's number a couple of times a week for 6 weeks until I finally got to the right person to talk to. And she's like, okay, all right, we'll give you a trial. Can you be here by 12 o'clock tomorrow? And I'm in Brisbane, I've got to get to Far North Queensland. I'm like, yes, I can be there at 12 o'clock tomorrow. So yeah, and that, I got on a plane, booked a car to from Cairns to Port Douglas, and I got there in time. And then she's like, "Oh, can we push it till 4 p.m?" But yeah, I mean that was a great adventure, and I had an absolute blast. But yeah, it's about being creative and being ready to move when you get that opportunity, because it could come along at any minute.
Yeah, and we'll do it pretty quickly. What direction haven't I gone in yet? The middle, yes, you.
So for professionals at your level, what would your kind of daily schedule look like on average?
Wants to go daily schedule. Go on, well, gosh, okay. Well, I wake up and start working. Yeah, like I mean, I'm working obviously for Takoot as well, so I've got to be on Canadian hours, which is I've got dark circles under my eyes right now. So I tend to work up until from about 4 till midnight doing that. But when I wake up in the morning, I'm straight into developing films and all the other things that I do. So yes, it's pretty busy.
Yeah, well, I wake up at about 3:45 every morning if I can, if I've had a late night. That's when I get my work done, because I still have another company as well that I've handed over. I've got managers, I've got all of this, but I still have to run all the financials. I still have calls coming in all the time, so all day my calls are still mixed up. I'm not at the area yet where it's not mixed up, so I have to get up at a point where I don't get bothered. It's the time where I can be most creative. I can actually kind of get ahead of everything, and then when I get the calls during the day, I've already kind of got an answer. I've got that document that I needed to get yesterday out that day, and I'm a morning person. I don't work into the night unless I have to. I like to get up. I'll get up at 1 a.m. if I have to, rather than staying up till midnight. I am that person. So it's that, and then it's work throughout the day. You kind of put in more hours when you have to. You know, you've got to be smart about it. You can't do it every single day. You've got to take a break. But, you know, you work my day, I guess, until about, 5 or 6, and then you got to give yourself a tiny bit of time, to be a human and have a family as well.
Yes. Hands once more. Yep.
Hey. My name's Jimmy. I am an actor, storyboard artist, just putting it out there.
Hi, Jimmy.
I can't wait to see Ruby's Choice, and I love that you make your own work and everything. But sorry, my question is for Liz. I just wanted advice more than anything, particularly because you said that you work for, your focus at the moment is regional stories. So, for instance, I'm writing something about Aboriginal mythology, and as exactly. So, as a story that I want to produce.
No, you need to talk to you, Dan, because I'm sure she'll be able to put you on the right track with that. It's a very sensitive. Yeah.
As an Aboriginal filmmaker, and we have our cultural connections and we have our stories, and we actually need to have people who are not Indigenous to step back and let us write our own stories, because we have a fuckload of them. And the moment you come along and write an Aboriginal mythology story, you have basically just disempowered someone from our community. So I advise you to go and search your own Indigenous roots and find the stories of the ones.
Perhaps instead of script work, there's some other sort of collaboration. And that'd be interesting to talk about.
I guess my question was more about collaboration. How would you advise going around that?
Find someone who's got a story already and you ask them to tell them. But you don't take an Aboriginal story to an Aboriginal person.
Exactly, yep.
I'm a bit grumpy.
In terms of regional stories, however, in terms of like I would say pitching regional stories, finding people to work with, what are you looking for regional stories?
That's the beauty about regional stories. There's so many different things. And I really think that Australia doesn't recognise its own potential, because you can do all sorts of things in regional areas. We're totally open to whatever you can think of. If it can be set. I mean, we've got access to a regional town, but there's also a old gold mining town nearby, and there's a lot of different kind of you've got grassland, and we're even open to going out even further and definitely expanding as we kind of increase the business. So it's there's really no limit.
All right, hands up one more time, or maybe a few more times. We're running just slightly over. Yes, you.
Hey, I'm Alexis. I'm studying film at QUT. I have this big assessment with pitching my idea. So basically, what I wanted to ask was, so all three of you had that different niche for your audiences in different genres. So I was just wondering, say I'm pitching my idea to say student panel. Would you say that it depends on the type of genre or audience niche that they go for, or is it just your overall pitch that sells it?
And we'll do one person to answer this one. Do you want me to go first?
I mean, pitching, you can, pitching sucks. Pitching fucking sucks. No matter what level you're doing it at, it's just always stressful, etc. I think being able to be being practiced, being concise, understanding why you're telling the story, and essentially thematically what the story's about. It really is a process of refining, and I think you can pitch to people, and no matter how great the pitch is, it's not going to be for them. If you're I guess it depends what context you're pitching in. You can be the juiciest peach on the tree, and they're going to be people that don't like peaches. So I would kind of take every pitch with a grain of salt. You do it, you get better, but really making sure that you're practiced and concise and not waffling off. I would when people get up and like just, you know, pitch things off the cuff, like, and you would do that conversationally, you know, it's different to a prepared pitch. So knowing which of those things it is. I talk to myself a huge amount, because I live by myself, so I can. And I talk about my projects to myself to refine out loud what I would say to somebody if I was talking to them. So now I sound crazy, but there we go.
Yes, we'll do another one. Yeah. All right, far back, and this will be our last one. And then you'll have time, obviously, to talk to people when we're asked. So, yeah.
I just wanted to know a bit about maybe what Liz was mentioning a while back about burning out, and find that me, as a student of film, found it really easy to burn out because you'd accept all these roles thinking you have to be a part of everything, and then you find out that it's impossible to a point. So I just wanted to know what your experiences were with maybe possibly burning out and how you look after yourself now.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely impossible to do everything. So that's a really important realization for me anyway. When I think a really good example is actually going to film festivals, because when you do go to something like that and it's exciting and you're running around trying to do everything that is on offer, and there's no way you can physically be in all those different places, and you end up doing crazy hours, and after like 2 days you're exhausted and you can't get out of bed. So definitely pacing yourself is something. The strategy that I always use with that sort of thing is to be identifying why it is that you are there, and then that will help you eliminate things that aren't actually serving your purpose. But even so, just in everyday life, meet up with your friends, just take a break, because even if you can only get half an hour off for the day or whatever, there are so many people out there who are basically not doing that, and it really adds up. And you think it doesn't, you think you can go, but once you get to like 5 years and you haven't taken a break, it's kind of too late then. So that's I think that's the main things, just being strategic about your choices and eliminating things that aren't, what you're wanting to do.
You will agree with that, obviously?
Yes.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, sure.
I would say the clearer your destination, like the clearer idea that you have of the kind of career that you want, the easier it is to kind of strategize and kind of decide what things are worth doing and worth not doing, or like what people are worth having around or not, like what people aid you, help you and creatively enrich you, or what people are kind of like sucking you dry. I think that if you can, obviously that idea of what kind of career you want can change over time, but if you have that beacon to kind of work towards, I think that will help you kind of, instead of throwing spaghetti at the wall, at least you're maybe throwing spaghetti at like a smaller patch of wall. And I'm a writer.
Okay, cool. Well, that was the last question. So I'm going to let these guys, turn off your microphone, and let these guys decide where the prize is going to go to. Get talking. In the meantime, I actually just want to say thank you. Thank you for coming.
Have deliberated.
Okay, so who's getting, with Liz, who's getting your industry business consultation?
The woman in the...
Yes, the lady just here on the corner?
Yeah.
Yes.
Question?
No, not the burnout question, unfortunately. Yes, I'm asking about the jobs and how to be found.
Let's
Yes.
Yes. Oh,
yes.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. And then with Tiana, the consultation session.
Hopefully my friend up the back has something he wants a consultation for.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes, awesome. Okay, lovely. Well, on that note, that concludes everything. Thank you once again. So if you would like, the bar should still be open. Please exit, make your way back. back there, get some drinks, get some food, it's still there. I know I'm starving. But that's it. Thank you.